Hello and welcome to Using the National Library of Scotland for your dissertation. My name is Lucy and I work for our reference services team in the library. That means I work in the reading room. I help people access the collections and I do inquiries for people. So people email and come in person and I help them to access the collections and stuff like that. Today I'm going to be telling you a bit about the library and the resources that we have on offer. Just to let you know, we are recording this session, but none of you are visible or audible or anything, so don't worry about that. It's going to go up on the university website later and on the National Library's YouTube channel so that people from other unis and stuff can watch it. So today I'm going to talk a bit about some of the more unusual items in our collections. And then I'm going to talk about resources which would help with actually writing your dissertation. The resources that I'm highlighting are probably a little history focused, just because that's my personal area of interest, but there are resources relevant to every subject area, and hopefully I'll also bring in a few more things. It might just have a bit of a history leaning. So there'll be a question and answer session at the end. If you want to ask a question at any point during the presentation, you can type it into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And my colleague is going to pop up at the end and run through all the questions that have come in with me. The slides will also be circulated afterwards, and I think they'll also be put up on the Edinburgh Uni website, so you don't need to worry about taking notes or anything like that. There's quite a lot of links that might be useful in these slides, so I think you'll be emailed them afterwards and you'll be able to access them yourself. So don't worry about taking notes down or anything like that. Okay, so to get started, the National Library of Scotland is Scotland's only legal deposit library and one of 5 in the UK. It originated with the founding of Advocates Library in the 1680s and was given the legal right to claim a copy of every book published in the British Isles in 1710. So that legal right is what we mean when we refer to a legal deposit library, the right to claim one copy of everything that's published. Because of this right, our collections grew exponentially, and by the sort of early 20th century, the Faculty of Advocates couldn't manage the collection because it was so large. So the National Library of Scotland was created by a 1925 Act of Parliament. The current building on George IV Bridge was completed and opened in 1956, and that's where we're still primarily based. That's where I work. So moving on to our collections, we are home to over 25 million items. Because we're a legal deposit library, that means that we never get rid of anything. So that's part of the reason why our collections are so huge. We've got over 75 miles of shelving across our 2 buildings. And on a busy day, our book fetchers, who go around collecting the books and sending them up to the reading rooms for us, can walk up to 10 miles a day. On average, we receive around 6,000 new items per week, which totals about 320,000 per year. So as you can imagine, that's a lot to deal with. More and more we're receiving items digitally as part of the non-print legal deposit scheme. This is a scheme of where publishers can provide the copies of their works that we claim digitally rather than physically. And a lot of them, more of them are choosing to do this now, so they come in as ebooks and journals. And these can be consulted only on site on library computers. So our collections include over 16 million printed items and 25,000 newspapers and magazines. We also hold 2.5 million maps and over 100,000 collections of manuscripts. Our oldest printed item is an 8th century Buddhist prayer scroll, which is stored in a pagoda-shaped case. Our oldest printed book is a copy of the Gutenberg Bible, printed in Germany in 1455. This was the first book printed in Europe with movable type, and ours is one of around 20 complete surviving copies. of the original 180 that were printed. You've also got a lot of really unusual items, like this collection of Shakespeare's plays in miniature. Each volume is only 6 centimetres high. They were published in Glasgow in 1904, and they're housed in this little oak cabinet designed to hang on the wall. So there was a bit of a craze for tiny books during the Victorian period. So our smallest book is an 1885 edition of Old King Cole, which measures 1 millimetre by 1 millimetre, which is smaller than your fingernail. We had to fact check that because we thought it was impossible to have a book that was 1 millimetre by 1 millimetre, but it really is a millimetre, not a centimetre. It's very tiny. We also hold a lot of unique historical manuscripts, such as the last letter of Mary Queen of Scots, which was written to her brother-in-law, the King of France, 6 hours before her execution in 1587. We also hold the document containing the order for the infamous massacre of Glencoe in the winter of 1692. So this gives you a breadth of a sort of a flavour of the breadth of our collections, the sorts of things that we hold. But of course, as well as manuscripts, rare books, and historical artifacts, we also hold millions of more recent publications covering all disciplines. The range of collections is absolutely enormous, so there's bound to be something relevant to your dissertation. So moving on from the more unusual stuff, we're now going to talk about digital collections, and this is the stuff that's maybe more of practical use in working on your dissertation. So we have extensive digital collections which can be accessed from our website nls.uk. Due to the current situation with COVID, I'm sure you'll all want to focus more on online stuff, so that's where I've focused most of this presentation. First of all, we're going to look at our digital gallery. So the digital gallery is a collection of images that are within the National Library's collections that we've digitized ourselves, which are out of copyright. So that means they tend to be about 100 years old or older. These include stuff like 18th and 19th century chapbooks, which were small, cheap booklets of sort of literature, histories, ballads that were sold on the streets to ordinary people during this period. We have Scottish Post Office directories, which lists of tradespeople and businesses. We have late medieval Scottish manuscripts, a digitized Encyclopedia Britannica from the 1700s, a collection of Soviet posters from 1919 to 1930, and tons more stuff on the digital gallery. It is free to access anywhere in the world. You don't have to be a member of the library. You don't have to be in Scotland. You can just you can just go straight onto our website. Don't have to sign in or anything like that. So it's really worth having a look. There's a lot of stuff in the digital gallery. Similarly, our maps website can also be viewed anywhere without a membership. It has over 200,000 high-resolution maps of Scotland and the world. And the website includes a georeference section where early Ordnance Survey maps are overlaid on modern satellite images, so you can see how the landscape and built environment has changed and developed over time. I would really recommend having a look at this website. It's really amazing resource. We also have the Moving Image Archive website, which has over 2,000 clips and full-length films. This can also be accessed anywhere and from home without having to log in. So all of the things we've been through so far are really easy to access, regardless of whether or not you're a member of the library. The films include stuff like documentary footage, home movies, and amateur films, and they're really useful for sort of social history, really interesting footage. The Moving Image Archive is based in Glasgow at Kelvin Hall, so you can go there to see any film collections that haven't been digitized yet. But you can also use the Kelvin Hall building. There's loads of PCs there, so you can use that to access non-print legal deposit items, so digital books that can only be looked at on site, and also any e-resources that are on site only, which we're going to talk about now. So EResources are digital resources which we subscribe to from other publishers. So everything else that we've talked about is items specifically from our own collections. EResources tend to be sort of stuff coming from other institutions or organisations. Some of these can be accessed from home and some can only be accessed on library premises. You do need to be a registered reader with a Scottish residential address to access these. So it's okay to use your student address rather than, because I know a lot of people from outside Scotland come to study here, but it's okay to just use whatever the flat you live in Edinburgh is, or wherever. But you do need to be a registered reader. That's because of the agreements that we make with the publishers of these resources, because of copyright restrictions and stuff like that. So there are three main types of e-resources, which we're going to go through now, and I'll give you some examples. So first of all, open access resources can be accessed from home when you're logged into your library account. So these include stuff like the records of the Parliament of Scotland from 1235 to the Act of Union in 1707. The UK Web Archive, which is a searchable archive of websites from the last 15 years, many of which are no longer available elsewhere online. Europeana is a collection of 4.5 million digitised books and manuscripts, newspapers, maps, images coming from cultural institutions all across Europe. And Open Texts is a searchable archive of over 8 million items from the National Libraries of Scotland and Wales, from the Wellcome Collection, the Bodleian Libraries, and more. The next type of e-resource are password protected. So that means these can still be accessed at home while logged into your library account, but some of them will require you to make a new account for the specific e-resource that you're trying to access. So these include stuff like the Black Newspaper Collection, which contains material from 9 different newspapers covering the period 1893 to 2005, and covering such events as the Harlem Renaissance and the 1960s Civil Rights Movement. Caribbean newspapers from 1718 to 1876 covers more than 66 newspaper titles from 22 different Caribbean islands and is an excellent primary source for Black history and the sort of history of European colonialism in the Caribbean. The Early English Books Online has over 130,000 books that were printed between 1400 and 1700, between 1473 and 1700 in England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and British North America. And India, Raj, and Empire is a digital archive from the National Library's own manuscript collection, covering the history of South Asia under British rule. So it covers the period from the foundation of the East India Company in 1615 to independence and partition in 1947. Finally, we have on-site only resources. So these can only be accessed in the library on a library PC. So that's a bit of a pain, but there's only like 15 of them. The vast majority of the e-resources are either password protected or open access. So on-site only resources consist of things like the Archives of Sexuality and Gender, which has about 20 collections spanning 1940 to 2014 and amounting to 1.5 million pages. This is currently on-site only, but there are plans to extend it to off-site as well. I'm not sure quite when that's happening though. The FAME database is a detailed business database with information on over 11 million UK and Irish companies. The John Johnson collection of ephemera from the Bodleian Libraries covers everyday British life from the 18th to 20th centuries. And finally, the Legal Deposit Map Portal allows you to search modern OS maps of Britain from 1998 to present day. As well as all these e-resources that I've listed here, we've got tons of journal e-resources, so stuff like JSTOR, Brill, Oxford Journals Online, and Sage, loads more. Yeah. So moving on from EResources, our digital scholarship service would love to hear from any students who are interested in text, data mining, data visualization, or other computational techniques. The service supports and facilitates digital humanities and data science researchers. On our Data Foundry website, you can find our collections in machine-readable form with digitized material, metadata, spatial data, and more. One example of a data set that we have is the first 8 editions of the Encyclopedia Britannica, which spans over 100 years. So this is really not my area of expertise at all, but if you do have any questions about it, please do ask, and we can pass these on to our digital librarian, our digital scholarship librarian, sorry. So on to actually using the library. To access our collections, you do need to join the library. You also need to join the library to use the EResources. So that's really easily done. You just click the link and fill in your details. On your first visit to the actual building, you will need to bring proof of ID and address. At the moment, you'll need to book a slot to visit using our Eventbrite page. We're currently limited to 1 slot per reader per week because obviously the capacity of the reading rooms has hugely shrank due to social distancing. So we're limiting people's visits at the moment. So you just need to look on Eventbrite to book a slot to visit. The library is open at the moment from 10 till 4, Tuesday to Saturday. Again, these are reduced opening hours because of COVID. We used to be open sort of like 9:30 till 7 most days. Books can be ordered via our online catalogue library search, and they arrive at our reading rooms in deliveries from our stack floors and our off-site storage building. The delivery service is currently limited also due to COVID, and is restricted to 1 delivery a day. So that means that you need to order by 11 AM the day before your visit to receive books in time for your visit. So if you're planning just your 1 visit a week, it's worth planning ahead the books that you're going to order and ordering them a good bit in advance just to ensure that they do arrive, because there's not much that can be done about it if they don't at the moment. So, oh yeah, we are also a reference library, which means that all of our physical collections must be consulted on site only, and so we don't lend books, in other words. There are 4 different reading rooms in the library. The general reading room in George IV Bridge is the largest and most commonly used. It's used to consult all items printed after 1850 that are not dealt with by a specialist reading room. It's a silent workspace over 2 levels with open access computers, laptop tables, newspaper tables, and laptop-free areas. The multimedia room, also in George IV Bridge, contains PCs, microphone readers, and even a VHS player. It also has PCs with accessibility software, readers with visual impairments or learning disabilities. So if that's software that you would be interested in using, please just get in touch with us. The Special Collections Reading Room is also in George IV Bridge and is used for consulting rare books, manuscripts, music, and items printed before 1850. And finally, the Maps Reading Room is in our Causeway Side building, which is the building where, that's our off-site storage building, where items that don't fit in the space we've got in George IV Bridge are kept. It's used for viewing maps, atlases, and gazetteers, and can be visited by appointment. So you can visit the general reading room and use it as a study space without ordering any collections. You're fine to just bring your laptop in. You can't bring your own books in at the moment, again, because of COVID. But in the Special Collections Reading Room and the Maps Reading Room, you do need to have ordered something specifically for those reading rooms to use them as a study space. So you can't just use them as a place to work. This because they've got such limited seating capacity at the moment that we need to save that capacity for people that are using the collections. We do have a lot of stairs in George IV Bridge, but we can cater for readers with mobility issues. So please get in touch with us prior to your visit, just to let us know any special requirements you might have. Images from our collections can be used in essays, presentations, and dissertations. We offer a range of copying services, from photographic quality prints to high-resolution digital images. You can capture some material yourself during your visits to the reading rooms using a phone, a tablet, or a small camera. And the website provides information on copyright and data protection to support any reuse of materials. Most of our digital collections are already openly available for reuse because they're out of copyright, but we're working to make our collections more freely and easily usable. Copyright can be a bit confusing and off-putting, so if you've got any questions about that, just speak to a member of staff if you're in the building, or email us. So finally, if you do have any questions about the library or its collections, after this presentation, you can put any questions you've got into the Q&A box, but after this, if a question comes to mind, you can get in contact with us via our website, nls.uk, by email at inquiries@nls.uk, by phone on 0131 623 3700, or you can use our Ask a Question service by filling out a form on the website. We also have an instant online chat service which runs from 10 till 4, Monday till Friday, where we can answer sort of quick inquiries. We can't do any sort of in-depth research or anything over chat, but we can answer short questions.